All right, guys, what's up? It's Jack, and welcome back to another video. I was originally going to make this video for tomorrow, but I think the timing is perfect now, especially since one of my followers over on Twitter, shout out to Rudd, showed me a little clip that actually proves that skill-based matchmaking is indeed in Splitgate 2. It's a looser version of skill-based matchmaking. However, the devs over here in this clip that I'm about to play for you actually describe it. But after this clip is over, I am actually going to go over the exact type of, well, in terms of what I think their version of skill-based matchmaking is like. And it might be something that was adopted from something that originated over 20 years ago with a little bit of something that has been mentioned about a year ago that I caught wind of, and it just so happened to be one of my most viewed videos ever because of a former dev. So anyway, let's get into this. Let's play this little clip, and we'll be right back.
So someone's asking about, the fabled skill-based matchmaking. So how does our matchmaking work right now? Just like in general terms, don't have to get into specifics.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the one who coded it. What I'll say in general terms is I believe in loose skill-based matchmaking. So, I think that there's a balance, right? I think a lot of people try to make it into like is it a good or bad thing? And I don't think that makes sense. I think it's just a thing that you have to find the right balance, right? And so, do I want super strict skill-based matchmaking where every game is super sweaty? No, I don't, right? I mean, that last game, that was sweaty. That was fun. I don't want that every single game. Similarly, I don't want to have a top pro player playing against a brand new player for the first time. I don't think that's good either. So I think it's just, you just have to be reasonable and get feedback and adjust. And if it feels too tight, loosen it up. If it feels too loose, tighten it up. I'd love to get feedback actually from the community on how it's feeling in the alpha. But that's kind of my philosophy. And then in terms of the knobs we can dial, right, it's skill and it's queue time and a couple other things, ping, right? But this time around, we're definitely prioritizing getting players on low ping and getting players faster matches with no bots versus getting people like the perfectly balanced game, right? So that's where we're at right now compared to Splitgate 1. Yeah, you'll have to tell us how it feels.
Okay, so that is what he had to say in terms of that, and it kind of sounds familiar, and I think that they are adapting a version that was made ever since the implementation of matchmaking in multiplayer games. And yes, I'm talking about Halo 2 / Halo 3 because check this out. So I made this video over a year ago, and it was one of my most successful videos ever, and it's titled Modern Skill-Based Matchmaking Called Out by Former Halo Dev. And one of the former Halo devs actually went into detail in terms of how he designed it, the mindset behind it, the reasoning behind it, etc., as well as calling out the modern skill-based matchmaking, because apparently it all started with an article that he saw, and then he kind of posted another 10 or 11 tweets explaining the system and why, and of course, why he believes you can actually implement that today. And I think that there's a possibility that Splitgate 2 might be adapting a similar mindset or a form of this type of matchmaking with their game. Again, I don't know. I'm not the engineer. I haven't talked to anybody on the dev team about the subject. However, who knows? Maybe after this video, if they catch wind of it, maybe they can clarify and say that it was something similar or if it was something different that they're doing in their own way. So let's get into the regular gameplay commentary because I got to show you the tweets and we got to go over it because I'm sure most of you have not only not seen this video, but I'm sure that maybe most of you haven't seen those tweets that Max Hoberman, the original inventor of the Halo2 / Halo 3 matchmaking system, invented for social, aka pubs, as well as ranked. And he goes into detail about that. So let's get right into it in the gameplay commentary. So I'll see you in a second. All right, guys, welcome back. So what I think that Splitgate 2 developers are doing is either a copycat or their own version of what Max Hoberman described over a year ago in the video that I covered. And we're going to be going over his tweets because he explains both the ranked and unranked systems that he basically designed all those years ago. So let's get into this. So it all started out with an article, and he says, "The ignorance here is infuriating. I see mention of the skill-based matchmaking component I designed for Halo 2 and Halo 3 on this site every so often. It's usually mentioned irreverently, but then an outlier jumps in to claim that it can't work today, and he disagrees. So, and in his tweets, he continues on to say, is what I implemented cleanly divided the space into ranked and unranked matchmaking playlists. Ranked filters opponents based off of level. This was for when you wanted a competitive match, but even then, I intentionally allowed variability in the range of levels we matched you with. This variability was a topic of hot debate internally during development 20 years ago. Obviously, no one wants to get stomped continuously. On the flip side, it gets dull for most people continuously stomping others. However, it is fun having an upper hand some of the time. He then goes on to say, by intentionally allowing arranged skills to match together, we provided 3 experiences in ranked matchmaking. An easier one when you can kick butt, a harder one when you're likely outmatched, and an evenly matched one. So my theory was a good mix of these 3 was ideal. By intentionally, let's see, oh, we already said that. Let's see, why not always evenly match people though? My reasoning was that these are actually the most stressful matches of the set. Sure, they're the most fun to watch for spectators. Games come down to the wire. That's because the team that wins is the team that outperforms expectations. He then goes on to say, the failure of modern skill-based matchmaking, in my honest opinion, is that it is designed to maximize these perfect match scenarios to minimize the others. Yeah. When it's working, a majority of games become super tight, super stressful, and that's not fun for most players. Where's the variability? He then goes on to say, as I'm scrolling up here, the system that I designed for ranked playlists ensured a healthy mix. Sure, it sucks watching your favorite team get their butt kicked, but it comes to full circle when they're the ones kicking butt. Throw in tight, evenly matches every so often, and that's a ton of fun. I haven't even gotten to unranked playlists yet. I designed these to not factor in skill/level in the search for opponents. Yes, our engineers utilized the same code base and kept skill/level as a search criteria, but we substantially deprioritized it in matchmaking. We also didn't track skill/level globally, only per playlist. The net result was unranked matchmaking allowed a very wide range of skill levels to match together for what everyone agreed was casual, inconsequential fun. Again, that is the way it should be, in my opinion. Since the natural skill distribution of players follows a bell curve, there are outliers. Inherent low skill and high skill players. Characterizing the high skilled ones as sweaty teens hopped up on monster energy is really disrespectful. And segregating high skill players from the population at large, forcing long wait times on them, is a form of discrimination. Designers should strive to find a way that players of all skill levels can have fun together. Casual, inconsequential, unranked matchmaking is one way. Let's see. I dabbled with the handicap settings as an asymmetric game mode design as others. Game devs shouldn't take the easy way out and default to segregation though. There's far more that can be done. Derogatory views like this among game devs is a cop-out and a disservice to players. Now, Max did a really good job of basically describing this so that way pretty much everybody can understand. And basically in ranked, you heard what he had to say. There were 3 different variations, one easier, one harder, one even. And for non-ranked, it was all about ping is king. And then they did factor in the skill/level as a criteria, but it was significantly deprioritized. So it didn't make the biggest difference, which would allow a variable amount of skilled players. Now, I think Splitgate 2 is doing this in their own way. And now, obviously, I could be wrong. I think we could, like, having a discussion with the community manager, or let's just say, or like, let's say maybe one of the engineers to go in depth on this would be awesome. Now, granted, unless things were like really, really tight, I don't think that would be necessary. But at the same time, you guys have been very adamant in my previous video, actually, before this one, about how you guys feel there's something in the game. Some of you guys have said that it shouldn't be in there, et cetera, whatnot. You guys had varying opinions. And yeah, it turns out that I was wrong in my previous video in terms of what I thought, because overall, I've had a mix of things. Mostly, it was fine. I'd have matches to where I would easily dominate. I would have matches to where it would be a little bit harder. And then I've had matches to where it was like even Steven. And then, of course, there were matches to where it was like, I am facing, as a solo player, I am facing a team of 3 or 4 players, and that they actually know what the hell they're doing. While my team, are other, randoms that possibly, may not know what they're doing or whatnot. So again, there really, beyond this, to my knowledge, there really hasn't been any detail in terms of in video form described. But what the Splitgate devs or the CEO has said is pretty much enough. And what Max Hoberman here says in the tweets of the video that I made a year ago or so when he called this out, or over a year ago when he called this out, in a way kind of mimics in certain ways in terms of what was said by the CEO of Splitgate. So but with that being said, guys, if there's any other input that you want to add to this in terms of whether you agree how Max did it or whether you disagree or how it should be done or what you guys are feeling, let it be known in the comment section below. But one thing I will say is thank goodness that it is not engagement optimized matchmaking, because EOMM is where, that's truly bad. We don't want that. When you're talking about a form of skill-based matchmaking, it is not nearly as bad as engagement optimized matchmaking. So with that being said, it appears to not be a thing in this game, thank goodness. And ranked is coming in the next week or two, and I think in ranked that they might do something similar to what Max described here. And we all know that the Splitgate CEO himself has said that he grew up playing Halo, so therefore why not take additional inspiration from Halo with the matchmaking system? It kind of makes sense, right? So if you're gonna put a little bit of old school DNA into your game, why not go as deep as the matchmaking? Because that is eventually fortunately that is part of your game. So I'm actually curious on whether or not they adopted this tit for tat or whether they did their own type of version that is kind of similar to this. I'm legitimately curious. So with that being said, guys, I want to thank everybody for being very generous in the comment section of the previous video. I greatly appreciate it, and I do know that the devs are watching. They are watching. I've talked to a few of them, and they're definitely watching. And sometimes whenever they have time, they respond. I'm not going to harass them. I'm not going to do that. They're busy as it is. I'm not going to be like, hey, what's the matchmaking system like, or something like that. When they feel they need to come out and reach out and say something, I'm pretty sure that they will. So with that being said, guys, thank you all for taking the time to watch and or listen. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.